Jacob's Quest, and tonight I just got back from watching the new M. Night Shyamalan movie, Trap, which, upon seeing the trailers, I thought was a really simple but interesting premise, right? Like, you have this serial killer who's trapped at this pop singer's concert because he took his daughter there, and the police are surrounding the area trying to find this guy, and that's just like an amazing premise on its own. But it is an M. Night Shyamalan movie, and that, of course, like we all know now, it comes with certain complications, right? Like, back in the day, he was the twist guy, and then, like, his career quickly, like, skyrocketed, and then quickly, like, plummeted down, and he's made many movies of, I don't know, varying degrees of quality. I guess that's like the nice way to say it. Some of his movies I find like interesting, if not actually good, but like at least kind of interesting. Others are, you know, like The Happening, which is like, that is what it is, you know. I will say this one, it's a pretty solid, enjoyable thriller with a little bit of dark humor mixed in, a tiny bit. And like I said, it has like a simple but solid premise, so there's not really any way you could mess that up. And I will say this movie delivers on what the trailer promised. So just like on the face value, it was pretty good. I actually enjoyed it. You know, it is kind of cheesy. It does have its M. Night Shyamalan like tropes, like its moments, kind of the you know, you have those moments where characters are talking to each other but they're staring directly into the camera like they're talking to us, and there's like these weird pauses in between some characters saying lines, like it was edited weird or something. You know, some of the dialogue is really like, you know, do people actually talk like that? I don't know. And that's just like typical Shyamalan things. I will say it's not always that bad. There are other parts where, like, especially when our main character is being like really creepy and scary, and I'm like, okay, this is like, you know, this is like really working. This is like a real movie. People are, you know, this is how characters in movies like really talk. But yeah, there are a little bit of the Shyamalan type stuff. Also, I will say, because like I said, it had a little bit of dark humor in it. It's kind of cheesy at times. It's kind of corny, you know. It definitely reminds me of like, and I don't even know why. It reminds me of that early 2000s film. I want to say it was called Payphone. It had Colin Farrell in it. I don't know if it was actually called Payphone, but it was the one where he was stuck at this payphone, and or was it Phone Booth? It might have been Phone Booth. Anyways, it reminded me of that for some reason. Not nearly as tense as that was. Go watch that movie. That's crazy. But it reminded me. It had like hints of that throughout this film. But yeah, all I gotta say is like the Josh Hartnett playing this killer who also has to put on like this like goofy dad persona when he's around his daughter, and is trying to like sneak his way around this building. Like, that is when this movie is at its most interesting. Like, you know, like you really like, you feel, like it says, trapped. You feel trapped like with the guy, you know, and it kind of in a funny way, like you want him to get away with certain things. Like you want him to be able to like, okay, he's gonna get past this area, he's gonna get past these cops, he's gonna be able to steal this badge, but also at the same time, like especially in the second half of the movie, you're like, okay, I'm no longer rooting for this guy. Now I hope all the other characters get out of here. You know, so it's kind of funny how the movie was able to pull that off. Like, we were, even though we knew the whole time, obviously from the trailers, that this guy is the killer, it was never kept a secret. It did kind of get you to go from rooting for him to, you know, rooting against him, which, you know, it's just like a movie thing, right? Like, he's the character we're following, so we kind of want him to succeed, even though, oh, that's right, he's the bad guy. I don't know. Funny how that works, right? Anyways, I will say the movie works really well while it's in this premise. The second half of the movie, we kind of, you know, and this is where we're going to get into a little bit of spoiler territory here, so you've been warned. The second half of the movie is where we do kind of leave this area. We escape from the concert, they go back to his home, and I do have to bring up the character of Lady Raven at this point. So Lady Raven, as it says in the trailer, is played by the niece of M. Night Shyamalan, right? And I think there's going to be a whole conversation about nepotism and you know, hiring your family and all that stuff. Look, I don't really care about that kind of thing. I don't care about like, oh, they're only in here because this is so and so's daughter or so and so's niece, whatever. I don't really care. In fact, they kind of make a joke out of that in the movie, because when he wants to try and sneak his daughter onto the stage, or like get his daughter to be selected to be one of the girls that gets to go on stage with this pop artist, he goes and talks to one of the staff members, and it is M. Night Shyamalan. He's like, oh, I work for her. I'm her uncle, you know. So, you know, like, they're very upfront about like, this is M. Night Shyamalan's niece for real. Yes, that's what this movie is doing. And look, I thought she was just gonna be the pop singer. Maybe she would have like one scene where she's like kidnapped or something, and they have to go rescue her or something like that. But she legitimately becomes a character. In the second half of the movie, suddenly we're kind of switched to her point of view as she's trying to escape from this guy and alert the police and save this other person that he has captured and all this stuff. And she goes to his house and they have like this really intense standoff while she's at his house now. And so yeah, she just kind of, at least for a while there in the whole second half of the movie, she becomes essentially the final girl, or at least for a second she does. And that isn't a kind of a weird thing this movie does. We start off in the killer's perspective, like he's our protagonist, we're following him around, we're hoping he succeeds, and then the second half we switch to Lady Raven, and now we're like, oh god, I hope she gets away, I hope she's able to alert the police. And the movie does that, and this is kind of where it gets weird in the third act, because Lady Raven manages to get away safely. She manages to save this other person that was in danger, and then she's just gone from the movie. And the last about 10 to 15 minutes of the movie go to the killer's wife, who, you know, we're introduced to his family, you know, his son and his wife, who were not in the movie up until this point. We're introduced to them like in the second half of the movie. And then suddenly, now in the last 15 minutes, now she's kind of our main point of view, as we're trying to see how she's gonna get out of this situation where she is able to stop him or get him captured, you know. And so it's kind of weird that the movie did that. Like, that feels like a strange rewrite at some point. Like, that was originally gonna be Lady Raven who did this, and then they're like, no, let's give it to the wife character. So then the wife is the one who ends up getting him captured, and Lady Raven's just, I guess she's just fine. She's out of the movie. It's kind of weird because like the movie's still going, and the person who we thought was our final girl is just not in the final minutes of the movie. So I guess the wife is the final girl, kind of. Anyways, the other kind of thing that the movie does a little strangely is they barely touch on the killer's like reasoning and why he's doing what he does, and they kind of like bring up his mom a couple times, and he keeps seeing visions of this older lady who we find out was his mom, and that kind of felt a little unnecessary, you know. Like, it feels like you could pretty much cut a lot of those parts out because it's very lightly played on at all. I think they tried to use, you know, his like psychosis against him like once. So I don't know. I do feel like if you could have taken anything out, it was like anything to do with like, oh, his mom punished him, and his mom knew that he was kind of weird as a kid, but you know, now he's able to hide it and pretend to be like a normal guy, and like that's pretty much all we get. So I don't know. That felt kind of random. It didn't really need to be in the movie, but and the other thing, of course, is that there is, I don't know if you would call this a twist. It's more of a reveal than a twist. You know, those are actually two different things. They're not the same thing. So I would say this is a reveal less than a twist. You know, again, we're talking full spoilers here. Okay, so basically you go this whole movie. You start off, they're at the concert. He's trapped in the concert. He escapes the concert. And it's never really addressed, like, well, how did they know he was gonna be here? Like, it just starts and like the police are already there. They already know he's gonna be here, and that's very loosely answered up to this point, because you're like, oh, they found like a random scrap of paper, like a ticket receipt at one of his locations, and so we know he's gonna be here. And it turns out the real reason why this happened is because the wife had begun to suspect that he was up to something. And then I guess over time she just kind of jumped to, oh, he's the serial killer that's all over the news. So I'm going to take a receipt for these tickets that I found in his wallet. I'm going to purposefully leave it here at one of the scenes. And then I'm going to call the cops and let the cops make that connection. That way they can do this whole thing. And also, hey, if it turns out he's not the butcher, then no harm, no foul, I guess. Like, that was her plan. That was her reasoning of thinking. And I think that's where the movie kind of gets a little like, I guess. I mean, this feels like a needless reveal, but then maybe at the last second they're like, oh, maybe we need like a twist, or at least some kind of shocking, like, oh, this is really how the police knew to find him there. But earlier, when they just said that they randomly happened to find a ticket receipt at the scene, and I don't know, I would have been willing to believe that it was just an accident that he made, and it wasn't like some kind of planned out conspiracy by his wife, you know? So that's where I was a little iffy on it. The other thing, and I know this is a real thing, so, you know, don't come at me. I know FBI profilers, people who profile serial killers, and they try to like get inside their minds, and they can like write up this whole like, okay, they're between the age of this, and they're probably this race, and they probably do this kind of job, you know? Like, I know that there are people whose actual job this is, but like, I don't know, I guess for me, at the beginning of this movie, they already have several descriptors of like, you know, what this guy should be like. And I know that they had some footage that seemed like really far away of like some of the kidnapping that he had done, which we don't see until much later, by the way. It feels like we should have seen that if it's going to help us buy that they're so spot on. Like, they even, like, the profiler was even like, oh, he's probably going to have a animal tattoo on the inside of his arm, and of course he has one. And it's like, wait, hold on. Where did that come from? Was that in the footage? I don't know. I don't think they specifically said that, but I don't know. It was just the FBI profiler seemed almost like maybe her character was originally a psychic or something. Like, maybe that was it almost felt like that was the direction the story was originally gonna go, is that this killer's being hunted down by a psychic who's predicted that he will be here. But then they did away with that, and so now it's just an FBI profiler who's just really, really good, I guess. Because somehow, like, they know, like, okay, he's gonna have this, and also he's not gonna panic. He's gonna plan out all kinds of things. He's gonna try to cause a diversion. So we need to like try and outsmart him at every move. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know how it was very movie-fied, I think. Like, the idea of being inside the killer's head, it was very like, okay, this is the cinematic equivalent of that. Anyways, but yeah, other than like a little bit of wonkiness, a little bit of like things that I thought were unnecessary, this was a pretty solid thriller, you know? Like, it was cool getting to follow the killer for the first half of the movie. And overall, I had a good time with it. It was cheesy and corny and had its Shyamalan stuff in it, and that's okay. I will say, like, if you're just looking for a simple thriller that you might have some fun at, like, this was a pretty good time. And yeah, like, is it possible that we get like a sequel to this? I suppose. I don't think it's necessary. I don't know what more you could get out of this unless he like they could very easily turn this into a situation where he's the Michael Myers and the pop singer Lady Raven is the Laurie Strode, and they could like try to make this like a like a legacy rivalry, like, you know, kind of thing. Like, they could do that. I don't know if they'll go in that direction, but for a one-off, like, you know, simple thriller that doesn't have a whole lot of gore to it, but it can also be pretty creepy at sometimes, like, this was a pretty enjoyable one. I think you'll have fun. It's kind of cheesy, but it definitely reminds me of, like, I don't know, early 2000s era film that this would happen in. So I don't know. I had a good time. And yeah, just let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you guys later.